After 17 years of abandonment, my half-sister came back to take my home. My half-sister and I do not have a real relationship. We share the same mother, but that is basically where the connection ends. When I was little, my life was already messy. My dad divorced our mother when I was 5 years old. At that time, my half-sister was 4, almost 5. The strange part is that my half-sister was born only about 9 months after me. She was the result of my mother having an affair. So we were almost the same age, but we had 2 different fathers. Back then, my dad stayed with my mother for a few years, even though things were not right. He did not know for sure what was going on. But when I was 5, I told my dad something that changed everything. I told him that my mom kept bringing another man into the house when my dad was not home. That man was the affair partner, and later I learned he was my half-sister's biological father. After that, my dad divorced my mother. As part of the divorce, my dad made a deal. He gave my mother the house. In return, she removed his name from my half-sister's birth certificate because my dad was not her real father. My dad still supported me financially. He paid child support for me until I was 8 years old. But when I was 8, my mother abandoned me in a horrible way. It happened during her custody week. She was supposed to have me, but she left me behind. The reason was cruel. Her affair partner did not want to take a child who was not his to visit his family during the holidays. So my mother basically chose him over me and walked away. That was the moment I fully lost her. My half-sister also hated me for years. From what I was told, she believed her grandfather liked me more, and she was jealous about that. Whether it was true or not, she carried a lot of anger toward me. So even though we were raised around the same drama, she never treated me like a sister. My dad tried to keep things calm after the divorce. He wanted me to have some kind of relationship with my half-sister. He tried to be civil for my sake, but I did not want anything to do with her, and honestly, she did not want anything to do with me either. After my mother abandoned me, there was no real reason for my half-sister and me to stay connected. I did not spend time with her anymore. She even told people that she did not have a sister. So I stopped thinking of her as family. I never claimed her, and I never defended her or spoke about her like she mattered in my life. Years passed. A lot of years. Then one day, I made an account online because I needed advice about something. And on the same day, I got a call from my half-sister. I had not spoken to her in 17 years. I did not even know how she got my phone number. But there she was, suddenly calling me like we were close. When I answered, she was crying hard. She sounded desperate. She told me her mother had kicked her out of the house. She said our mother did not want anything to do with her anymore, especially now that our mother had married a man I did not know. She mentioned his name, but it meant nothing to me. I had no idea who he was. All I could think was, why is she calling me? I did not feel any sisterly bond. I did not feel love. I felt shock and irritation. And honestly, I felt like she had no right. So I hung up. Right after that, she started texting me. She said she really needed her sister's help. She kept using the word sister like it was supposed to control me. She said she had nowhere else to go. She claimed her father had cut contact a long time ago. She said nobody in the family was willing to come and pick her up. She lived 6 hours away from where I live. She also seemed to know things about me. She knew my location, or at least the area. It is not impossible to figure out because I live next door to my dad. But still, it felt strange that after 17 years of no contact, she suddenly knew where I was and how to reach me. She called again. This time I answered, because part of me was curious and part of me was angry. She started crying again, repeating the same story. That is when I finally spoke clearly. I told her we're not actually sisters in the way she thinks. We share a mother, but we do not have a relationship. I told her I was not driving 6 hours to come get her. I told her I was not giving her a place to stay while she gets back on her feet. Then I hung up again. After that I blocked her number. But she did not stop. She started calling from other phone numbers. Over and over. And then something worse happened. People from my mother's side of the family started contacting me. They were texting and calling like I had committed some crime. They told me I was an awful sister. They told me I should be more understanding. They told me I should help her because I was once the child who got kicked out. That part made me angry because they were acting like my story and her story were the same. They were not the same. My mother abandoned me when I was 8. She abandoned me because a man did not want me around. That was not just being asked to leave. That was being thrown away like trash. Also, where were these people for me when that happened? They were nowhere. Now, suddenly they cared, and they wanted me to fix their problem. At that point, I felt torn. Not because I wanted to help my half-sister, but because I wondered if I had handled it the wrong way. I wondered if hanging up was too harsh. I wondered if I should have been calmer, even if I still said no. So I asked for outside opinions because I needed insight. I needed someone to tell me if I was wrong, or if I should have done it differently. A lot of people who read my story said something that made sense. They said my mother's family had a lot of nerve. They asked why none of them were stepping forward to help my half-sister if they cared so much. They pointed out that sharing genetics does not automatically mean I owe her anything. Some people said I should think about whether I wanted to act the same way she acted toward me. They said if I choose to help, I should be careful. They warned me not to bring someone into my home if I do not trust them. They said a person like that could steal from me, cause trouble, or refuse to leave. They also said if I ever decided to help, I should set strict rules before she ever stepped inside my home. Clear boundaries. Clear expectations. No confusion. When I read those comments, I realized my biggest question was this. Why am I the only option? If it was a few years earlier, I might have helped her. I admit that. When we were kids, she probably repeated whatever her parents said. She was raised in that environment. So I do not fully blame childhood for everything. But we are both 25 now. We have been legal adults for years. If she wanted a sister, she could have reached out at any time. She did not. She said she had no sister. She ignored me for 17 years. So why is it my responsibility now? I also admitted something else. I did not like what I said when she was emotional. Not because I was wrong, but because I did not like how cold it sounded. Even so, I still did not understand why she was running to me like I was her only lifeline. Another problem was that the people contacting me were mostly strangers to me. They were relatives I did not even talk to. Some were cousins, aunts, people I barely knew. They were judging me and insulting me even though they had no relationship with me. My maternal grandmother was one of the loudest voices. She claimed her house was full and she could not take my half-sister in. Then she pointed out that I live alone, so I should help. She kept repeating the idea that family helps family. But to me, my half-sister was almost a stranger now. I had not seen her in 17 years. I did not know her personality, her habits, her intentions. I did not know what kind of adult she became. I felt like people were demanding that I open my home to someone I do not even know just because we share the same mother. That is where I was mentally when new questions came up. People asked why my half-sister was kicked out in the first place. That part also confused me. In her texts, she made it sound like her mother got remarried and the new husband did not want her living there anymore. My grandmother did not give more details. An aunt and a few cousins tried to say it was similar to what happened to me, meaning a new spouse did not want a child that was not as around. But still, something felt off. Because if it was truly so innocent, why was the whole family pushing her toward me instead of taking her in themselves? She was dropped at my house without warning. 2 days after my original post, everything got worse. At that point, I still was not sure where to post my story or how to explain it properly. It had only been 4 days since I made my account, and I was already questioning whether I was wrong for how I handled things. My half-sister had called me crying, saying our mother threw her out and she needed her sister. I hung up the first time. When she kept calling and texting, I told her clearly that we were not sisters in the way she thought, and that I was not driving 6 hours to pick her up or letting her stay with me. After that, the pressure exploded. My maternal family started contacting me nonstop. Calls, texts, messages from people I barely knew. My maternal grandmother was the worst. She was the only person on that side of the family I had limited contact with before this. She begged me to be a good sister. She told my half-sister that I had my own house. She even gave her my phone number. That alone made me feel betrayed. I ended up blocking my grandmother too, because it felt like she was helping push my half-sister onto me instead of protecting my boundaries. Still, the messages kept coming from other relatives. They all said the same thing, that I should be understanding because both my half-sister and I had been abandoned by our mother. But it was not the same situation at all. I tried explaining that to my grandmother before blocking her. I explained the difference, but no one wanted to hear it. No one wanted to admit that my experience and my half-sister's experience were not equal. To be clear, my half-sister and I are only 9 months apart in age. She is the result of my mother's affair. My dad stayed with my biological mother until I was 5. That ended when I told him she kept bringing another man around when he was not home. That man was the affair partner and my half-sister's biological father. After the divorce, my dad gave my mother the house in exchange for removing his name from my half-sister's birth certificate. He still supported me. But when I was 8, my mother lost custody because she abandoned me. She did it because her affair partner did not want to bring a child who was not his to family events. My dad tried to keep things calm so I could maybe have a relationship with my half-sister. But she acted like a smaller version of her father. She never treated me like a sister. I did not like being around her. My dad never forced it. Not long after that, my mother, her affair partner, and my half-sister moved away. My mother had worked in childcare, but lost her job because people do not trust someone to watch their children when she abandoned her own child during the night. I had not seen my half-sister in 17 years. I did not even know what she looked like anymore. That fact became important very fast, because one day, I came home, and there she was. She was sitting on my porch with a suitcase. There was also a car nearby, and I recognized it as my grandmother's car. The moment I pulled in and parked, that car drove away. I did not even get out of my car. I was too angry to move. I just sat there, staring. I could feel everything boiling inside me. Shock, rage, disbelief. She started saying she needed me. She started crying again. She went on about how awful our mother was. She said her own father had cut contact. She said my mother's boyfriend did not want her in the house. She acted like I was her last chance. I lived next door to my dad. When my half-sister walked up and started knocking on my car window, I finally reacted. I called my dad and told him exactly what was happening. I asked him what I should do. He told me to stay in my car and call the police for trespassing. So I did. I stayed inside the car until the police arrived. I did not say another word to her. When the officers showed up, my half-sister immediately lied. She told them I had agreed to let her stay and that I was now abandoning her and making her homeless. I showed the police the messages. Every message I had sent was a refusal. No to having space. No to her staying with me. No to her being my sister. No to picking her up. Nothing that could be misunderstood as an invitation. When she kept insisting that we were sisters, I told the officers the truth. I had not seen this woman in 17 years. I did not know her. I did not even recognize her face. We shared a biological mother and nothing more. I went one step further. I unblocked my grandmother and called her right there. I barely got to speak. She started yelling immediately. She said she loved me, but I needed to get over this. She said my half-sister was family and needed me. Then she said something that still makes me angry to think about. She said she told my father that he would go to hell if he raised me to be so selfish. She said I would go to hell too. She insisted my half-sister was going through the same thing I went through. Then she hung up. I told the police they could either arrest my half-sister or take her to a shelter. I did not care which. I just wanted her off my property. They took her away. After that, I went to my dad's house and sat on his couch, completely numb. He did not want me to stay alone in my house that night, in case they came back. I was furious. 17 years of no contact. I only spoke to my grandmother on holidays. I did not know most of the aunts, uncles, and cousins who flooded my phone with messages. Yet suddenly they all felt entitled to tell me what to do. I am 25 years old. For years, I only had my dad and his side of the family. My mother and her family did nothing for me. They did not even know my birthday. Even my grandmother texts me on the wrong day every year. Not even a phone call. So if my half-sister truly needed help, why none of them stepped up was beyond me. I was not letting a stranger into my home. I did not care that she shared blood with me. She was still a stranger. 6 hours was apparently too far for them to help her, but not too far to drive her to my house and try to force her on me. People online continued giving advice. Most said the maternal side of my family should be helping her and that this was not my responsibility. Some pointed out how strange it was that my grandmother cursed my dad and me, but said nothing about my biological mother. Others said it made no sense that my half-sister's own father would not help her. Many people told me to get cameras and file for a restraining order. I listened. I replied that I would try to get one. Thankfully, my dad and I already had a security system and cameras in place. Others advised me to completely cut off my grandmother and everyone on my mother's side. They said the situation felt suspicious. More people suggested getting a second phone number and slowly disconnecting the old one so harassment could stop. Others warned me not to block messages because blocking prevents collecting evidence. That advice stuck with me. I realized I needed proof, not silence. So I unblocked them and muted them instead. I saved every message, and that decision turned out to matter a lot. The cameras revealed everything. 3 days after the original post, things took another serious turn. At this point, I understood that this was no longer just family drama. This was about my safety, my home, and my peace of mind. I decided to check the camera footage from the night before. What I saw made my stomach drop. My half-sister and my maternal grandmother had been on my property again. They were not just standing on the porch. They were walking around. They looked under potted plants. They checked around rocks, near the mailbox, and near the doors. It was obvious what they were doing. They were looking for a spare key. I did not keep a spare key outside. The only people who have keys to my house are my dad, my grandma on my dad's side, and my grandpa. All of them keep their keys secure with theirs. Seeing that footage confirmed something important. This was planned. This was not desperation. This was entitlement. As soon as my uncle saw the footage, he stepped in. He helped overhaul the security for both my house and my dad's house. We upgraded the cameras to newer ones that send alerts directly to our phones when motion is detected. We installed doorbells with cameras on the front and back doors. The cameras were also repositioned and better hidden. While my uncle was doing that, I went to the police station with my grandfather. I brought printed screenshots of the messages and a USB drive with the camera footage. That same day, my half-sister was officially booked for trespassing. She was not held long because my maternal grandmother picked her up from the station. What made things worse was that both of them repeated the same lie. They told police I'd offer my half-sister a place to stay. I knew this lie could be dangerous if it went unchallenged. That is why saving all the messages mattered. Every message showed the opposite. Clear refusals. No invitation. No confusion. My half-sister did not have any prior record, so this was her first offense. Honestly, that frustrated me. As bad as it sounds, a prior history might have helped my case for something permanent. However, my maternal grandmother did have a record. Harassment, trespassing, domestic violence. I made sure the police knew that too. Later that day, I was able to get a temporary restraining order. I gave the police the footage, the texts, and my statement. They contacted a judge and issued the temporary order. During the process, I talked a lot. Probably too much. The anxiety hit me all at once. It finally sunk in that these people knew exactly where I lived. They were willing to drive 6 hours just to harass me and try to force themselves into my home. The calls and messages did not stop. Now that I had unblocked and muted them, I could see everything. There were threats. Some were indirect. Some were very clear. My maternal grandmother kept saying that since I had a house, a stable job, and no kids, I would be taking my half-sister in. She even said if I did not, she would give me the beating my dad should have given me. My half-sister left a voice message saying she was coming back later and staying with me because that is what blood does. Why did not respond? She sent more texts saying she was moving in for at least a week until she could support herself. She knew exactly what she was doing. In my area, 7 days is enough time to start claiming tenancy. People online helped me understand that too. I gave the police everything, and I listened closely to advice. They told me that even letting her sit on my porch too long could have worked against me legally. They said I'd done the right thing by never opening my door. They also said upgrading security and asking about self-defense showed that I genuinely felt unsafe. That mattered. At this point, I was no longer doubting my choices. I felt validated. Later, I learned that when I first posted the update, the temporary restraining order had not been served yet. That scared me. But soon after, they were found staying at a hotel near my home. A neighbor saw them, recognized the car, and called the police. Both my half-sister and maternal grandmother were served. The restraining order applied to both of them. People online were shocked. Many said the behavior from my maternal family was insane. They pointed out how cruel it was to ignore me for 17 years and then suddenly act like I mattered only when they needed something. Some warned me to watch my mailbox. They said my half-sister might try to change her address to my home to claim residency. I followed that advice too. If anything arrives with her name on it, it goes straight back marked as not living here. Then came another update, and that update changed how I saw everything. The truth finally comes out. A few days after everything with the restraining order, I received a message that I had muted earlier. I almost skipped it, but something told me to read it. It was from a cousin on my mother's side, someone I barely knew. They said they had read my posts and felt I deserved to know the full truth. What they told me made my stomach turn. They explained that my half-sister's problems did not start with being kicked out randomly. The situation was much darker and messier than anyone had admitted. According to this cousin, my half-sister had been in contact with her biological father again when she was about 20 years old. Around the same time, she helped cover up my mother's affair with her current husband. When my mother's husband found out, the affair partner stopped paying my half-sister's tuition and cut her off financially. My half-sister never really worked after that. Her work history was almost non-existent. About a month before she showed up at my house, my mother kicked her out for a very specific reason. My half-sister had been sleeping with my mother's husband. Even worse, she had also been involved with one of his sons. That son had recently turned 18. When my half-sister came home that day, her belongings were on the curb and all the locks had been changed. No police were called. The family quietly tried to contain the damage. The cousin did not know if my mother told the son's mother, but she did tell the rest of the family. She warned them to protect their children and their marriages. That alone says a lot. My half-sister claimed the relationship only happened once and only on the boy's birthday. My mother claimed it started before he was an adult. Either way, the entire situation was disturbing. The family panicked. They decided my half-sister needed somewhere to stay long-term. Not because they liked her, because most of them did not, but because she claimed she was pregnant. That pregnancy turned out to be another lie. She showed my grandmother a positive pregnancy test, but no one else ever saw proof. The cousin explained that my half-sister had a long history of lying. She had couch surfed with relatives before. She borrowed cars without permission. She took expensive items to pawn. She stole money meant for job interviews and travel, then spent on expensive baby clothes and personal items. When police are involved, she lies. She once got someone arrested by accusing them of assault when they tried to remove her from their property. Then the cousin told me the most important part. The plan to push my half-sister onto me was not random. It was calculated. The idea came from one of my uncles, one of my grandmother's sons. Apparently, my grandmother often complained about me. She complained that I was young, child-free, financially stable, and owned my own home. This uncle decided that since I had no children, no responsibilities, a stable job, and extra space, I was the perfect solution. No one else wanted to deal with my half-sister, so forcing her into my house was their answer. The cousin warned me not to give an inch. Not a ride, not a couch, not even help finding a shelter. They said someone already tried that and almost got arrested because my half-sister caused a scene and lied to police again. Reading that message made everything click. This was never about family. This was about control and convenience. After that, people online warned me to be careful around holidays. They said that times like Thanksgiving and Christmas were common moments for forced confrontations. They encouraged me not to travel and not to leave my house unattended. I listened. I canceled my holiday plans. I refunded trips. My neighbors were informed. My family created a rotation, so I was never alone. Friends stayed overnight. My dad checked in constantly. I started building an evidence binder. Screenshots, transcripts of voice messages, camera footage, notes documenting every single day, even when nothing happened. Then another update came in from the same cousin. My half-sister had been arrested after stealing my grandmother's car and credit cards. While being booked, she claimed she was pregnant again. She refused to take a pregnancy test. Later, she claimed she had a miscarriage. That turned out to be false. She eventually admitted my grandmother told her to lie because pregnancy was the only way to get sympathy and help. It worked for a while, until it did not. The cousin also explained that Child Protective Services were contacted, not just because of my half-sister, but because of the younger stepbrother. The younger boy admitted that my half-sister had also tried to involve him and repeatedly pushed the idea of waiting until he was legal. She asked inappropriate questions, commented on his looks, and made him uncomfortable. Both boys are now in therapy. Their father lost custody completely. When I learned this, I felt sick, especially knowing the younger boy had tried to speak up before and was ignored. Then came the final incident. My maternal grandmother and the same uncle showed up at my house again. They tried to pressure me into paying my half-sister's bail because no one else could afford it. Police were called. Both were arrested. My grandmother was in direct violation of the restraining order. That was the moment everything finally stopped. What I learned and why I'm sharing this. I'm safe now. The calls and messages stopped. My neighborhood is alert. My security system is upgraded. My boundaries are firm. I'm sharing this story for one reason. Blood does not mean access. Family does not mean ownership, and no one has the right to destroy your peace just because it is convenient for them. For 17 years, I was ignored. I healed. I went to therapy. I built a life with people who actually cared about me. Then suddenly I mattered only when someone wanted something. I do not hate my half-sister. Hate takes too much energy. But I resent what she and her family try to do to me. I resent having my safe space threatened. I resent being treated like an object instead of a person. Asking for help does not mean forcing yourself into someone's life. And saying no does not make you a bad person. If you're watching this and dealing with something similar, protect yourself. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Do not let guilt replace logic. And most importantly, remember this. You're allowed to choose peace. Thank you for listening to this story. If you want to hear more real-life stories like this, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your support helps keep these stories alive.